I testified as to these are the entries submitted to us by the taxpayer.
That is correct. Because, to repeat, you are not qualified as an expert witness, and therefore you have no business expressing your opinion or drawing conclusions. You can simply read out of the document or recite them if they are memorized.
Yes, ma'am.
Good, very good. Now we understand each other. So, may I please end my comment now, Mr. President? The problem at this instance of our trial is that the presumption of unexplained wealth when the income and the assets do not tally, meaning to say the assets are so much far more in value than the income, this is a presumption that is laid down in the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Instead, maybe it was a congressional oversight, it should have been included in the separate law, which is called the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards, which is devoted mostly to the filing of the SAL-N. I'm not directing this to you, witness. I'm simply explaining myself. That is why we're a little confused here. Now remember, this is only a prima facie, or as the Filipinos say, prima facie evidence lang yon. Pag hindi sila nagtugma, prima facie, ay di, ninakaw niya siguro yan. Bakit ang dami-dami niyang pag-aari? Konti lang palang kinikita niya. But that is only a presumption. That is only prima facie presumption. It can be impeached, meaning to say, it can be overthrown, or it can be defeated by evidence to the contrary. Just for your elucidation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I move that Senator Joker Arroyo be recognized?
The gentleman from Makati and Bicol is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is really a point of inquiry. I would like to know whether these exhibits, you know, we were given 2 folders. That must be around 50 or 60 exhibits. But among those that I found is exhibit quintuple C-1, which is, can you please look at that?
What is that exhibit?
Quintuple C-1. No, C as in Canada.
And the nature of the document?
This is precisely what I would like to ask Mr. President.
All right, proceed.
My understanding is that you're talking to. My understanding is that these documents yesterday were marked but not yet admitted in evidence.
Not yet open.
Now, any document that has not yet been admitted in evidence is not yet a public document. Income tax returns are sacrosanct. They are very, very confidential. Now, it has been marked, identified. Now, my question, Madam Commissioner, is, can you look at exhibit CCCC-1? Or more particularly, yes, and the rest of it. These are the income tax returns data of Renato C. Corona. Why was this released? Has this been released to anyone?
Sir, the release was to the Senate.
Only to the Senate.
Yes, sir.
In other words, this has not gone out yet.
Not that I know of, sir. We submitted it to the Senate based on a subpoena issued.
Yes, we understand.
Yes, sir.
There's
Only
nothing
to-
wrong up to the subpoena. I am asking about whether these documents, which are not yet public documents because they have not yet been admitted by the court, have been released to anyone.
No, sir.
May I ask, Tina, the commissioner said that it was released only to the Senate. May I know whether this has been released to anyone else? No, it's only a yes or no. Go ahead. Pardon?
Sir, we've furnished copies to the defense, the prosecution, and to the senators, Your Honor.
To the defense and the...
Prosecutors and to the senators, Your Honor.
So in other words, if these are released at all, the sources will be either the prosecution or the defense.
Yes, Your Honor, or the senators, Your Honor.
Mr. President, I would request that the parties be enjoined from releasing any data on this until we admit it, because we defeat the purpose of this confidentiality of the income tax return. That was the subject of our caucus and the discussions yesterday.
Mr. President, with the indulgence of Senator Arroyo, just a follow-up question.
Senator from Taguig.
Perhaps we could ask both the defense and the prosecutors if they have released this, because I know for a fact that on media daily after the session adjourns, everyone's on TV. So just for the record, at least we all know, because I don't really follow it, but I constantly see people flashing documents. So to pursue the question of Senator Arroyo, has these documents been shown on television, or for that matter, anywhere else? May we hear from the prosecution and the defense?
The prosecution panel may reply.
Yeah, as far as we know, as far as we're concerned, Mr. President, we haven't released anything to other parties. It's just with us.
Did you not release this to your spokesman?
As far as we are concerned, no, Mr. President.
Are the spokesmen a member of the prosecution panel?
The spokesmen are not, but they are members of the House.
The gentleman from Cavite.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a public trial. If we want to keep confidential certain documents, then we should call for an executive session. I submit,
don't want
Mr.
to
President.
I don't want to engage in a public discussion. It's just a cautionary statement on my part.
My understanding of the request of the senator from Makati and Bicol is for the chair to caution both the prosecution and the defense in exposing evidence not yet offered in evidence in this formally offered in evidence in this court. The presentation of the evidence in this court of a document is simply to let it be recorded as an evidence for the prosecution. The time for offer will come, not at the time of marking of the evidence for purposes of identification and for purposes of the witness, the statements or declarations of the witness. So I would like to caution the lawyers appearing here to be very careful. The prosecution.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just want
No,
to put,
let the prosecution react first.
Mr. Senate President, I just want to put on record that the only document we released to the public was around January 3, that was the Bellagio. And after that, after the Senate President raised his concern about it, and some senators, we haven't released any document to the public. So we complied at that moment. Around first week of January, we complied with the directive of the Senate President. Until the present, we are complying, and we intend to comply until the completion of the trial.
May we request the spokesman of the prosecution as well as of the defense not to discuss the evidence, including the merits of this case, outside of this court. They can discuss what happened, the procedure, but not the contents of the evidence, as well as the evaluation of the merits of contained in those documents.
We will tell them, Mr. Senate President.
The gentleman from Misamis Oriental.